In my opinion, The Last of Us is TV at its finest. It's this hit HBO program about a down-on-its-luck fungus that gets the opportunity of a lifetime when global warming motivates it to become a better, more improved version of itself. With a new lease on life and some good old-fashioned dog determination, it's goodbye to infecting pathetic tiny ants and hello bringing justice to humans, its antagonists in the story, as they're the ones who polluted the planet enough to destabilize the climate in the first place. They also have this little tendency to want to annihilate the fungus, which it finds rather annoying. But it's those same humans who, in all fairness, make the show worth watching, because their chemistry, their personalities, and their backstories lend so much diversity and intrigue to a narrative that, without them, would have been just a lot of running and screaming. And not just the characters, but the overall set design for these episodes is fantastic. Like, there was stuff that I thought was CGI in the show that I later found out was practical. And now I'm kind of having a crisis because I've realized we're reaching a point in special effects where fantasy is becoming indistinguishable from reality, where the possibilities of what they could put into footage and pass off as real is becoming limitless. Either that or I need new contacts. But at the end of the day, it's the story surrounding these human characters that makes me want to talk about the show the most. It's beautiful. Many a time, it's enough to bring a tear to the eye. Well, unless you're a tough guy like me. Now, I don't mean to brag, but I only cried 4 times while watching, and I only came to 2 life-shattering realizations about the fragility of life itself, only one of which led to an existential crisis. This is especially surprising to me considering I'm not even that into the zombie genre. Generally, it's something I pass on. However, like the flesh-eating zombies featured in the show, I might now be infected. Enough about myself, though. Let's dig into this amazing show and talk about the characters, the set pieces, and a story that makes The Last of Us a worthy video game adaptation. Not like Super Mario Bros., a film whose creators I'll see in hell. There will also be spoilers in this reaction video, so if you don't want those, quarantine yourself from me in your nearest convenient QZ. So, The Last of Us mainly revolves around 2 characters, Joel and Ellie. Played by Pedro Pascal, Joel is put in charge of looking after Ellie, who has a specialness to her I'll get to in a second. Though initially somewhat reluctant to take on the responsibility, Joel finds himself increasingly attached to the girl as he guides her through danger and peril, ultimately coming to view himself as a sort of surrogate father to the orphan child. Bella Ramsey portrays Ellie. And now what's her special ability, you ask? She's got the best dance moves in the entire Boston QZ. She's also immune to the fungus. Now, Joel and Ellie spend quite a lot of time together over The Last of Us' 9-episode run, hiking and driving all the way from Boston out west in search of scientists who can potentially transform Ellie's immunity into a cure. And it could so easily be like whenever I used to take family road trips. Mostly silent, interspersed with lapses of consciousness as I blacked out from sheer boredom, and the swells of nausea from the car sickness I'd eventually get from trying to read Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows in the back seats. I either got sick from that or because of the blossoming romance between Ron and Hermione, because she should have ended up with Harry. But Joel and Ellie aren't boring. The chemistry between Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey is one of the greatest strengths of the entire show. For example, one of my personal favorite scenes is towards the end of episode 4, when Ellie makes a punny pun about diarrhea being hereditary. You know, because it can run in your genes. And it's such a heartwarming moment, not just because it's the first time Joel's character has smiled on screen in years, but because the interaction doesn't feel scripted. It feels real. The banter between these two is so seamless, the delivery so natural. You just don't get the sense that you're watching an event that was scripted in advance, which unfortunately is sometimes the case in certain shows where some of the writing and line delivery is so weird. I feel like I'm constantly being reminded that I'm watching something.
His fingerprints were found on the airplane?
Inside the cargo hatch door, and we did an amino test. They were fresh when the plane landed.
There was a stowaway on 828.
Oh god, I've got to know what happens next. Like, you just kind of want to roll your eyes after hearing it because you know it's supposed to be a dramatic moment. It's supposed to be a surprising revelation. And that's not the case for this show, which is part of what makes The Last of Us so impressive to me. Well, that, and also arguably because it makes puns funny, that in itself is a pretty big achievement. Keep in mind, this is a high-budget production based on a fan-favorite video game that's made for mature audiences, and it makes a poop joke work. I love it. Another thing that makes these characters interesting is their backstories. Now, I've always felt that learning a good backstory about a character, in a way, is like peeling a fresh banana that you just picked off of the Walmart produce shelf, like our ancestors used to before they discovered curbside delivery. When you start with the banana, it's got this outer layer. It's the first thing you see. It's like the character as they are today. But when you view the backstory, it's like you're peeling that outer layer away, as if you're going back in time. And then you see the character not as they are, but as they were. You've stripped away the scuffs, the bruises, the supermarket sticker that'll stick to just about anything but the banana, and what's inside is something much softer and sweeter. It makes you like the character even more, because you now understand they weren't always this battered, bruised version of themselves. Like in the case of Joel, who didn't always used to be so closed off and cold to people. He had a brother, a daughter he watched Boo movies about rogue ninjas with. He could have been all our best friends. But everything changed when the cordyceps attacked. What's also cool is that this seems to work in reverse too. Have you ever picked up what seems to be a pristine banana only to unpeel it and discover it looks a lot like the surface of Pluto? It's like Ron Swanson. I mean Bill. Bill is introduced in the 3rd episode through a flashback. He's initially a staunch survivalist with no human companionship. He's completely independent, paranoid, distrustful of others, ready and willing to pull a gun on anyone he's unfamiliar with. You know, the sort of guy you'd want to invite over for pizza and play a couple rounds of Mario Kart with. Until he meets Frank. Frank fills the void in Bill's life, ultimately softening him up and bringing out a happier, more carefree side of himself as the two grow old together. He even forms relationships with others outside his partner. It's a truly beautiful transformation that adds a lot of depth and emotion to what otherwise would have been an empty handoff when, after we've caught back up to the present, Joel finds Bill's compound and reads his death note bequeathing all his items to him. And it also makes for what was honestly my favorite episode in the whole show, which is why I've got to take a moment here to praise Nick Offerman's acting. He does such a good job portraying a roughened, calloused exterior with a sort of vulnerability, maybe even a pain, just underneath the surface. In spite of all Bill's preparations and inventions, he's alone. He has every right to say, "I told you so." But to whom? To carry on his humanity, Bill had to cut himself off from it. This is most evident when Bill sits at the piano to sing Long, Long Time by Linda Ronstadt, a song about a love that never was, effectively revealing Bill's extreme loneliness. Offerman excels in not just singing emotionally, but also acting with a sort of awkwardness when Frank touches him, giving Bill the most human contact he's gotten in years. He's like, "I want to let you in, but do I remember how to let someone in?" Another actor I also want to talk about is Bella Ramsey. Not that so many of the other actors in this show aren't great, because they are, but Bella Ramsey's performance as Ellie is definitely a standout for me. First off, turns out the actor's British. Listening to her in interviews after I watched her for 9 episodes as this foul-mouthed American 14-year-old feels like stepping into some alternate parallel universe. Basically, her accent is so good, the apocalyptic zombie world her character inhabits is the one that feels more normal to me. Like on a scale of Gerard Butler to Hugh Laurie, she's definitely a lot closer to Hugh Laurie, who, to me, is like the pinnacle of the American accent being performed by a Brit. I mean, in House, he honestly sounds more American than some of the people in my family, and the dude's from Oxford. Ramsey's character also has some pretty unhinged moments throughout the show. Specifically when she's defending herself from the evil creeper preacher teacher in episode 8, the actress excels in portraying an almost animalistic self-defense mode as she's fighting for her life. And the last actor I want to mention is probably the one I'm most impressed with out of the entire show, because when I first saw them, I kind of just assumed they were computer generated. I don't know how you can be so good that you seem fake, but this little zombie girl from episode 5 had me fooled. Apparently, she's like a contortionist in real life, so all these movements are actually her. She's like one of those brown recluses. She's like my cat when she's got into the catnip. Bouncing off this point, something else I want to applaud is the use of practical effects, specifically this giraffe. When I first saw this giraffe in episode 9, I legitimately 100% thought to myself, that's the shittiest CGI giraffe I've ever seen. And it wasn't until I was watching some of the behind the scenes footage that I discovered that that fucker's real. His name's Nabo, but the horse Joel and Ellie ride on during so many episodes, the one I cried over when it got killed, that's gotta be real, right? Nope. I wasn't joking in the intro when I said I was having a little bit of a crisis over this, because I can't tell what's real and what's not anymore. Is Joe Biden real, or is he just a CGI composite in front of a green screen? Is Donald Trump just a hideously realistic Muppet? Am I even real? Or am I just like in animation? Is Hugh Laurie voicing me? Is he doing my American accent? I'd actually be into that. Finally get the man the Emmy he deserves. This could qualify. It's kind of like a TV show. Okay, not really, but the man's been nominated 6 times. 6 times! And he's never won an Emmy. It's a crime, okay? I'll tell you what's not a crime, though. This set design. It's immaculate. If this set design was a McDonald's Filet-O-Fish, it'd be the best goddamn Filet-O-Fish you ever did see. They've got these really elaborately detailed post-apocalyptic streets they film on a lot of the time, and they just look so realistic. They're filthy, they're brown, they're falling apart, kind of like my college apartment. And the building interiors are these peeling, scummy, disease-ridden places where you just want to take a Clorox disinfectant wipe and just like wring out all the chemical juice over the mold to incinerate the life out of it. Also like my college apartment. These sets are giving me a lot of nostalgia. It's even more impressive when you learn that they build all these places from scratch. I discovered this while reading like a Vanity Fair interview with the show's production designer, John Pano. He revealed in it that they planned to shoot a lot of the show in actual physical locations, but Canada turned out to be way too pristine, so they had to build pretty much all of it themselves. Those damn Canadians. Can't they do something wrong? For once, not even the fucking trees were bad enough. According to Pano, there wasn't anything but firs. You know the type. Lush, gorgeous, used for Christmas tree decorations. They had to bring in other stuff and cut it all up to make it look dilapidated. Otherwise, everything behind Joel, Ellie, and like the zombies would have looked like the backdrop for one of those Hallmark Christmas movies. Though on the one hand, that does sound bizarrely interesting to me. A Hallmark movie with all the innocence, purity, and joy of a traditional Hallmark movie just set in the aftermath of a zombie apocalypse. Instead of a Christmas land, it could be a vicious strand. Synopsis. When the fungus mutates again and everyone is forced to self-isolate, it's up to Ellie to cheer everyone up over the loudspeakers by putting on the commune's first ever radio talent show. And she spearheads the whole thing with her own one-man comedy act completely centered around puns. But can she help Joel overcome his stage fright so that he can finally find his voice and sing? So that the blistered remnants of civilization can be soothed by his melodic talent? It'd be so wholesome. Joel could perform something like It's the End of the World as We Know It. Sony, Hallmark, your move. One last thing I want to talk about in relation to the set pieces are the zombie costumes, specifically this zombie costume. Again, I thought this was CGI, but nope. This is a 40-kilogram suit, which converts to about 88 pounds, and it cost $500,000 to make. To help you visualize that better, that's like having 9 savanna cats strapped to your every limb, each one of those luxury animals costing upwards of 50 grand, and then pretending like it's noon at your local Golden Corral all-you-can-eat buffet. And you want to know the craziest thing about this suit? It only took an hour to put on. You hear all these stories about actors who have to sit for hours on end as they're getting sealed into these elaborate prosthetics. So to the people who designed these suits, I give you a thumbs up. Hell, I give you 2 thumbs up. I know, the highest form of praise in the entertainment industry. Some of them genuinely do remind me of when I looked at myself in the mirror after not having slept for 18 hours. Now, the last sort of point I want to make about this show is arguably the most important, and it's that the story is extremely well executed. At the end of the day, you can have the great effects, you can have the cool zombie costumes, you may even have some good actors on set, but if it's all executed poorly, none of it matters. As Damon Salvatore said in The Vampire Diaries, there's no such thing as a bad idea, only poorly executed awesome ones. A quote that to me should be ingrained in our minds just as much, if not more than, some of the other great things people have said, like, a penny saved is a penny earned. And whatever you do, always give it 100%. Unless you're donating blood. And one of the things The Last of Us really nails for me is the pacing. It's a show that takes its time, that's for sure, but it takes enough time. It's enough for things to settle in, for things to feel real, for the actors to not just deliver their lines, but also have enough time to express them too. Some of the most powerful shots in the show are taken when no one's speaking at all, when the camera's just lingering on actors' faces and feeling is being conveyed without words. Unlike some other TV shows, Marvel. Shows that would really benefit if they were just allowed to breathe for a bit instead of getting smashed into 6 45-minute episodes and a rushed climax. Looking at you, Moon Knight. Now, I'm not saying we gotta go the whole 24-episode arc or anything like that. I'm just saying that The Last of Us gets it right. 9 episodes, each about an hour long. If it needs to be a little bit longer, it's a little bit longer. Nothing's too long, nothing's too short. It's kind of like perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Also, as someone who is experiencing this story for the first time through this show, I'm only like vaguely familiar with the video game. I found it to be pleasantly unpredictable. There are so many twists and turns throughout the narrative. Sometimes there are complete detours that in the end enrich the story so much that in hindsight, they don't even feel like detours. You could say The Last of Us is more like Dragon Driftway from Mario Kart. Twisty, turny, and kinda stressful from start to finish, but still a lot of fun, and a far cry from Toad's Turnpike. Of course, you could arguably drive with your eyes closed, but even if the show may share a lot of similarities with the game it's based on, a quick search reveals that there were some reimaginings, so even people experienced with the story can still find some surprises here and there. For you guys, I guess it's more like Toad's Turnpike in mirror mode. Same overall feeling, your brain's just gonna get a little bit of a workout. Now, last but not least, I'd like to touch on the show's most central theme because I find it to be very well integrated and actually kind of perfect. The theme is that even though sometimes things just don't quite work out, and even though it might leave you not quite knowing what to do next, if you keep going, eventually you'll find something new to fight for. It's woven throughout the story perfectly. The theme's there and it's never forgotten. It complements the horribleness that makes this fictional world what it is. All throughout, these characters have every nightmarish thing you could imagine thrown at them. From knife stabbings to fiery explosions to horrifically awkward first kisses, they're given every opportunity to not want to go on. So I can't think of a better theme to center a story about a zombie apocalypse around. The two are like opposites that somehow work extremely well together, like chocolate and potato chips. And that's the last of what I've got to say in my last point in my commentary video on the HBO hit The Last of Us.